Welcome back to No Gree Entertainment. I'm your host, Drew. Out here with my dog.
What's going on, y'all?
How you doing, bro?
I'm good, bro. It's been a lot happening
A
behind the
lot happening. I'm
scenes,
telling
trying to
you,
set stuff up today, but
I'm telling you, bro. It's hectic.
yeah,
I ain't gonna
very.
lie. Just because of that, we might have to just get straight into it, bro.
Yeah.
So I got a theory. I've been thinking about it for a minute. Africans, they have a lot of titles before their names, and I started to think about it. Doesn't it kind of like show insecurity? Like, how many titles can an African man have until it just becomes, a form of insecurity?
Um, I feel like you said, it's a form of insecurity. Jeff Bezos, he's just Jeff. Mark Zuckerberg, just Mark. Elon Musk, just Elon.
Good point.
So why is Uncle Chukwu doctor, engineer, lawyer? You know, I feel like it's just a sign of poverty. Shouldn't really be going past one title, if we're being completely frank. That's my opinion, though.
Yeah, I think once you MD, doctor, lawyer, you have that many years, to be going to law school, go to med school, to go to engineering school. Like, why do you need the whole alphabet before your name to prove that you're significant as a human being?
Yeah.
I think a lot of these uncles are just insecure. They're so title driven. I think it just becomes kind of a fetishization at a certain point.
Yeah, like why is your title longer than your money?
Mm,
Like your title has more zeros than your bank account does.
hmm.
It's gets to a point, it's an issue. So
Yeah, I think yeah, it's just directly. If I see an uncle, if I see an uncle with more than two or three titles, I just know his bank account is low.
yeah,
I just know he's just insecure in himself as a human being, as a man. So I feel like yeah, past two, I think it's just you start to become
it's
pure.
like behind all those titles, who are you really? You know
Hmm.
what I mean? You're the same uncle who. Let me not even go too deep into that, but behind those titles, who really are you? You know what I mean? It just gets to a point where it's just insecurity and all
Hmm.
that. So
Yeah,
that's my take.
yeah, but at the end of the day, it's just a form of compensation, bro. I mean, you're using all these words, all these names to kind of compensate for your low bank account.
Mhm.
I'm just Andrew.
Yeah,
So speaking of net worth, obviously in Nigerian culture, there's this thing of respect. You see your parents, you greet them, good evening, son, good evening, ma, good morning, mom, good morning.
hmm
Um, but I started to think, at what tax bracket do you stop greeting your parents and start calling them by their first name, or start, just even calling them boy or girl, you know, good morning, boy, good morning, girl. So at what tax bracket does that, shift occur?
I feel like, I feel like once you start reaching a certain amount of bread, you know, gravity doesn't really apply to you anymore. You know, when kneeling, I feel like it's a form of submission. And why am I submitting to you if I make more than you? You know what I mean? Um, I surpassed the 10K a month. I surpassed the 10K a month check mark at the age of 12. So, it's been about close to 7, 8 years since I reached that point. And, ever since I got there, I seen it never, ever since I got to that point, I saw a newer level of respect, a newer level of, gratitude due to, the amount of money I was bringing in. I feel like once you get to that point, especially at the age I was, I feel like, but, but yeah, like I said, like, it just gets to a point like, why am I rolling, like doing ballet, doing all that, rolling on the floor like a mechanic? Like, I don't know, it's just dirty.
Yeah, I think it's just more economically efficient to, a handshake would be good.
Yeah,
You know,
handshake's a lot more professional.
yeah, good morning, boy, shake your
Hmm.
hand. Good morning, girl, shake your hand. Or you just call them by their name. But I don't. Even good morning is kind of pushing it because you're, submitting to them. You just say hi or something, nod your
Yeah,
head.
just a
That's
little handshake and a nod
yeah,
should be
handshake or
enough.
nod. You don't have to say anything because I know. Or I think when you start saying, good morning, good afternoon, boy, good afternoon, girl. Um, I think it's economically inefficient. You could be using that time to, invest or read books, read financial literacy books.
Yeah, like Kaisen that.
Yeah, like Tyson, that he's on his he's on his grind, bro.
Yeah.
Can't lie, bro. Yeah, I think because when I really think about it, if I try to, because when you really think about it, all those nods they've accumulated throughout my life. I think all those good mornings, good afternoons, all those greetings that I've said in my lifetime, I think would accumulate to about 6 or 7 thousand hours in my lifetime. I could be using those hours to, read books about stocks and dividends. I could be, building my financial literacy. But instead, like Nigerian culture, they don't value the practical things in life, and they would rather be greeted with good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I don't believe in that. When I have a children, when I have a son, God willing, a good nod, a good handshake, fist bump. Nothing more, nothing less. So I feel like once you start, being verbal about it, just gets
Yeah.
inappropriate.
Yeah, once you start tapping toes, rolling on the floor, all that, at what point does that become, submission? What point do we draw the line between respect and submission? You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, hundred
So,
percent. Fully agree, bro. I couldn't agree more.
all right. So, like a year or two ago, I I broke my leg. I had broke my leg playing football, and went to the ER and all that. Doctor was telling me, I would have to be crutches for a couple weeks. Then my mom comes to see me. Obviously African parents, they don't like the whole being in the hospital for an extended amount of time, concept. So she came and then she was like, you know what Aboniki is? Like the hot rub.
You're asking a Nigerian if he knows what Aboniki is.
Yeah, I was just making sure.
Okay.
But she came to me and she was like, "You ever think about just using this Aboniki and just getting up and going home?" And the doctor was in the corner while she was saying this, by the way. And I low key was looking at him and he looked kind of, I don't know, he kind of looked embarrassed because, he spent 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years in medical school just for my African mother to say I should rub Aboniki on my broken leg and get up and walk. After he told me I would be in crutches for a couple weeks. So I just wanted to see, like, if you were the doctor in that position, would you try to get a refund on your tuition, or would you just accept the fact that an African mother outwitted you?
If I were a doctor, I would be extremely embarrassed like he was. The course of action I would take is I would probably sue my medical school for, embezzlement because, it's just a bad ROI. It's a bad return on investment. I spent, that many years in my life studying medicine when I could have just learned from a Nigerian auntie. So I'd be embarrassed. Yeah, I would try to get a refund. Um, it just makes me think of a story. A couple weeks ago, my cousin, she told me she matched into her desired specialty. She said she was going into sports medicine or some nonsense like that. And I reproached her. I said, "Hey, like, we come from a place that has the most knowledgeable doctors in the world, Nigerian aunties and Nigerian uncles, and WhatsApp University." So I said, "Hey, like, you just wasted all these years. You just wasted all these years, all this time. That you're never gonna get back. All this money you're never gonna get back." So I think, yeah, I just think that any Nigerian or any African child that goes to medical school is just wasting their time. WhatsApp University is the greatest university that there is, and yeah, it's just a bad ROI.
Yeah, like you said, I feel like the ROI is night and day. Like my mom literally spent $5 at the Southwest Market to get the Aboniki, and dude spent over 100 bands on his degree, just to get shoved in a locker, basically. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Both methods are equally efficient.
Mhm.
You rub Aboniki, you're healed, and like the next day, your doctor does surgery. I mean, what's that gonna do? It's gonna take you 8 months,
Yeah,
and it could re-tear. Like, yeah, I think medical school is a waste of time. So
yeah,
obviously, just a bad negative, negative yield. Yeah, that's just embarrassing. I'll never go to medical school, bro.
yeah. All you need is Aboniki, prayer, and WhatsApp University,
Aboniki fasting, yeah, you're good. You're
and
good to go.
you're good to go.
Obviously, bro, there's business thing of filling your ice cream container with Egusi or any other African soup. Nigerian moms love to do this, bro. I don't know why, but me and my mom, we signed a contract when I was about 6 or 7 years old. That was the first time I ever saw her do it, and I was like, I was very offended by it. Um, so when I made her sign the contract, um, it said that have to she'd have to serve, nights of prayer and fasting, dry fasting with no water. If she's ever caught red-handed putting soup into the ice cream container. So I guess my question to you is, how many nights of prayer and fasting should an African mother serve if she's caught red-handed putting African soup in the ice cream container?
Um, that's a definitely that's a hardcore crime. I feel like it shouldn't really be taken lightly. The trauma that it could cause as a kid, playing in the sun with your friends and you come inside thinking some vanilla Politan ice cream. I feel like that's a hardcore crime. It's deserves to be punished on the highest level. It can cause a lot of trauma in a kid, especially if you're 6 or 7 years old. Being outside in the hot sun, playing with your friends, and you come back inside, open the Politan ice cream tub, and you see no frozen Egusi. That can cause trauma. So I feel like honestly, it literally says in the Bible they fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. So I feel like that's the perfect amount of time to match it up to,
Mhm.
40 days and 40 nights of no water, no food. Heck, honestly, fast from your phone too, so you can really think about what you did.
Not only is it like a cardinal sin, it's also a spiritual sin as well. It's the purest form of spiritual wickedness. You can't just bait and switch your kid like that, especially when he's like 6 or 7 years old. Like you said, playing in the sun on a hot summer day, he opens a fridge, opens a tub of ice cream, and he sees a goosey. And to make it even worse, there's no pounded yam, so he can't even eat. So I think, yeah, that's just wickedness. It's evil. Um, and I think, and like you said, the punishment needs to be biblical. 40 days and 40 nights of fasting, no water. And I think that'll set it straight.
Yeah, something like this, bro, I don't take lightly because it literally happened to me.
Yeah,
When I was 7 years old, I got done playing outside and I go into the refrigerator, I mean the freezer. Then I opened the container. It wasn't even really like 99% soup. It was like 50% soup. And then I saw like a couple of fish heads looking back at me. So definitely
I did not expect that. I'm sorry, man. Oh my gosh, fish heads.
yeah, bro, I wholeheartedly agree, honestly. I don't take stuff like this lightly because it literally happened to me. I was like 7 years old, got done playing in the hot sun. I came back inside and to grab some ice cream, I thought, and I opened the container just to see like a couple of fish heads looking back at me with like swimming in a goosey, and kind of just
No. If I were to see fish heads looking back at me, I would be scared too. I'd be traumatized too.
hmm
So I don't blame you at all for that.
yeah. That leads me to my next point. Let's say your mom, she's really strict with the no malt, no juice policy, right? And she has been, for the past like 6, 7 months. But she immediately brings it out for a guest, like in one day. So my question to you is, can you legally sue her for embezzlement and hiding of the product?
Yeah, 100%. I would 100% follow through with. I would sue her for asset hiding and embezzlement. I think, yeah, the only logical thing to do would be sue her for asset hiding and embezzlement, because why are it's asset misappropriation for domestic guests. I mean, for domestic residents, you won't domestic residents will never see that juice, will never see that Capri Sun, will never see that Sprite. But as soon as a guest comes, everything's changed. All of a sudden, we have 6 months worth of soda. Doesn't make sense. And I think the only logical thing would be to, follow through with the going to court for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a form of child endangerment. And it's
That's
like a
right.
form of It's like a form of child endangerment, for being completely honest. I'm suffering, like I said, for the past 6, 7, 8, 9 months. And, I can't have snacks, I can't have treats. It's just like prison. The second a guest comes, you just give it up. Like
Yeah.
the guest children, they can eat the animal crackers and the Doritos and all that. But I can't have it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just, a form of disrespect in a way. Because it's like, you see me as your child or do you see me as your prisoner?
Yeah. 100%. The living conditions at home are just inadequate. And I think if you're willing to do that, you might as well, adopt them and, just sell me off.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think that's appropriate. It's never been, something that I've enjoyed, as a kid. Our aunties and even our aunties and uncles, they'll be eating animal. Here, my aunties and uncles, they'll be eating animal crackers in my face, and I've never seen animal cracker in 2 years. I just think it's definitely legal grounds for asset misappropriation and embezzlement, fraud.
definitely.
Yeah.
At that point, just call CPS. Like,
Hmm.
call the big Yahoo. I'd rather live with him than deal with those conditions.
Yeah. Those living conditions are just, yeah.
So I was at Southwest Market the other day, and I was doing a little bit of shopping for my mom. Grabbed a couple meat pies, just as a treat for myself, just because I, bought all the groceries for her, spent my time getting those groceries for her. So, I head home, put on this TV show, grab me an ice cold malt, and then I just bite into the meat pie. And it was really 95. And I bite into the meat pie, and I'm immediately like disappointed because it's just straight air. It was like 95% air, and the rest was like potatoes. It wasn't really any meat in there. It was like, I want to say 3 or 4 specks of ground beef and like a little bit of carrots. I was immediately distraught. So I was like, it's probably just a fluke. I bite into the other one, same thing. I bite into the third one, same thing. And I feel like, once I bit into that third meat pie and I see any type of feeling, proper feeling in there, it kind of just gave me the ache and I felt really disgusted. So, so my question to you is, if you bit into a meat pie and it was 95% air, is that culinary fraud or a Ponzi scheme?
I think it's just a Ponzi scheme. Yeah, it's definitely a Ponzi scheme. I'd definitely go to the EFCC and report for carbohydrate harassment because what am I eating? Bread and potatoes. It's inappropriate at the end of the day, and I think this needs to be a legal matter at AU. When did this take place?
Literally last week.
Yeah, I mean, we need to have we need to sit down and really talk about this because I mean, if we have African, restaurants, doing this, what's next? Are we gonna start? Are we gonna start filling malt bottles with Coca Cola? You're just baiting and switching, and yeah, I mean, I'll definitely follow through with that. We're gonna get that reported, but yeah, that's definitely a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, like I know tariffs have been getting thrown around, but it can't be a tariff on ground beef.
Yeah.
So I feel like we just got to do better as a society because
Hmm.
there should be no reason I'm getting into a meat pie and there's nothing inside.
Yeah.
It's like it's just weird. Yeah, it's just honestly just traumatizing and just weird to me.
Yeah. I'm sorry you had to go through that, bro.
Yeah, I ended up having to get McDonald's to make up for that, but
Hmm.
I just hope I don't have to deal with that again.
At the end of the day, the guy's just selling you the concept of a meat pie. He's not selling you an actual meat pie. So it's just fraud in its purest form. And Nigerians love to do that. They love to do that. So
Yeah, I feel like I was getting teased, honestly.
yeah,
It was like, ha, like you been into 3 meat pies and
yeah,
there was nothing inside, like goofy.
haha,
It just felt disrespectful.
yeah.
So we got to do better.
You gotta do better as a people, man. Yeah, guys, we've covered some very important topics today. I'm glad we got through all of these, and thank you for tuning in. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Peace.
Safe. God bless.